London Nards Vlog.
Nards Vlog, yan, support po natin. London Nards Vlog, more power.
People in central London, possibly even hundreds of thousands of people, certainly expected during the course of the next 4 days as people come. It'll be carried on a gun carriage of the King's Troop Royal Horse Artillery. Crowds will watch as the cortege makes its journey through central London, along the Mall to Horse Guards, and then down Whitehall to Parliament Square, and then into New Palace Yard, ready for the lying in state in Westminster Hall.
Buckingham Palace, of course, the Queen's home in London, but also this great edifice at the heart of the capital, which has been witness to the gathering together of the peoples of the United Kingdom in triumph and sorrow. It was bombed 9 times in World War II.
David just making her way to the palace. The Queen Consort and other female members of the family, apart from the Princess Royal that is, will be travelling to Westminster Hall by car. What we'll see is the King and his 2 brothers certainly processing behind the gun carriage as it carries the coffin over to Westminster Hall, and will emerge on that gun carriage and be taken over to Westminster. Of course, the crowds are here wanting to enjoy the glory of the spectacle, despite this. How much of your work to do with the Queen's public activity was to do with helping charitable organisations?
It was absolutely essential. I mean, the monarchy's work with charities is such an important part of their soft power, you know, in terms of uniting the nation in so many ways and reflecting, as Ken says, you know, the small charities, the big national charities that go from sovereign to sovereign, but also those kind of charities that reflect the rest of national life, the Queen's Award for Enterprise, the Queen's Anniversary Awards for Higher Education. They're all absolutely critical in terms of the
Corps of Royal Marines, who are preparing to play, and the Royal Salute is about to be played. And the colours, as we can see throughout the day, draped in black. The band of the Corps of the Royal Marines, and this is part of the Tri-Service Guard of Honour that will form up in Parliament Square. The Royal Navy with the King's Colour of the Fleet, and soldiers from Nijmegen Company, 1st Battalion Grenadier Guards with the King's Colour, and the Royal Air Force with the King's Colour. So the Tri-Service Guard of Honour, and they'll be marching off fairly soon to take up their positions on the eastern side of Parliament Square, ready for the procession when it arrives from Whitehall and makes its way to Westminster Hall. So over at the Palace of Westminster, which is bathed in sunshine this afternoon. Very nice contrast to yesterday. There we have the Elizabeth Tower, named in memory, of course, of Her Majesty, and the great bell of Big Ben, which will be tolling every minute during the procession itself today. And Westminster Hall there, just in the shadows on the right-hand side, the oldest part of the Palace of Westminster. And my colleague Petrok Trelawney is there.
Yes, the Elizabeth Tower, renamed for Queen Elizabeth II to mark her Diamond Jubilee 10 years ago. And the clock face of Big Ben, the newly restored clock face of Big Ben, its rich gilding glowing in this glorious afternoon sunshine, setting off perfectly with the blue skies above London. At the exact moment that the procession bearing Her late Majesty's coffin sets off from Buckingham Palace, a bell here will start to toll, and it will ring out every minute until the cortege arrives at the Palace of Westminster. Westminster Hall itself, nearly 1,000 years old. For much of yesterday, it was filled with soldiers, choristers, heralds, parliamentary officials, and members of corps of royal bodyguards established under Tudor monarchs, all preparing in minute detail for this moment. The Queen's mother and father both lay in state here inside these walls, and soon her coffin will rest on a catafalque draped in purple cloth. This is a highly symbolic occasion, the moment that the coffin becomes the responsibility of the Earl Marshal and passes from the care of the royal household to the state. After the procession arrives here, there'll be a short service led by the Archbishop of Canterbury and sung by the choirs of the Chapel Royal and Westminster Abbey. Then the first vigil will be mounted by the household cavalry, the gentlemen at arms, and the yeomen of the guard. The first of 20 watches, each one lasting 6 hours. Watches that will run continuously until Monday morning, when the coffin will be carried across Parliament Square to... And this afternoon, once the royal party has left, well, the hall will close briefly and will then reopen its doors again, allowing the public the chance to file past the coffin and pay their final respects.
And now the King's Troop of the Royal Horse Artillery are deploying in Hyde Park, from where they will fire the minute guns. Every minute, to remember, to draw the capital to attention. And here at Wellington Barracks, soldiers, sailors and airmen of the Tri-Service Guard of Honour now depart for Parliament Square. The band of the Royal Marines, led by Lieutenant Colonel Jason Bertram, Principal Director of Music of the Royal Marines. And these soldiers, sailors and airmen will not be part of the formal funeral cortege, because they are going ahead to Parliament Square. They will be ready in position to receive the cortege when it arrives. This reminds us, of course, that beyond her relationship with the troops of the Household Division, the Queen was Commander-in-Chief of the entire armed forces.
So to the rousing music being played by the Royal Marine Band, we are in a position to see just the corner there of Horse Guards Avenue and Birdcage Walk as the Tri-Service Guard of Honour makes its way to Parliament Square. They will be providing the King's Guard in Parliament Square, ready for the procession when it arrives at the Palace of Westminster. And as we look at these images, and as we see all the expectant faces in the crowds, all along the Mall, and the crowd swelling with every minute. My guests are still with me, Sir Ken Elisa and Sally Osman. And as we look at this, Sally, and everyone here in the crowd, of course, acutely aware that it's been a great burden placed on the King's shoulders now, but after a very long apprenticeship, a record period as Prince of Wales, he's now King Charles III, lots of people very impressed with the way that he's stepped up and the eloquence with which he's spoken in recent days. How does the palace, because you will know this better than anyone, how does the palace manage that transition and all the different things that the king may well want to do, the different ways in which he may want to operate? How is that being managed?
Well, it's interesting, you know, that the Queen on his man, and he will be his own man. But as we've seen over the last few days, the machinery of monarchy keeps ticking, and he will pick up those duties. I wouldn't call it a burden necessarily. It's a different kind of duty. He spent his entire life too serving people, being dutiful, etc. And this is just a different way of doing it now, in terms of now holding the role of monarch.
Well, we're just looking at the crowds, and of course this is an interesting sight, Sally. Look at this. These are the staff of Clarence House who've turned out for this procession today. And Clarence House, of course, a home which has had, again, strong links with the late Queen and with the late Duke of Edinburgh, and indeed Prince Charles.
And indeed the Queen Mother as well. It's very different, and I'm not quite sure what the practicalities will be in terms of who stays where, but these people have worked with the King for many years, and there'll be a lot of affection there, as there will be for all the people in Buckingham Palace who've worked with the Queen so closely, who'll be really feeling this very keenly.
It's one thing that we've maybe not reflected enough on, to be honest, which is to do with the kind of impact this will have had on staff who've had, in some cases, a lifelong record of service to the Queen. Some of them surely will stay on, but some clearly will maybe feel that as the Queen has left us, it's maybe time for them too to move on. It's a difficult time.
It's a difficult time, and I'm sure those decisions will be being made. The people I keep thinking about are the ladies in waiting, actually, who've been such a constant in the Queen's life, alongside her personal pages, alongside Angela Kelly, who is obviously the Queen's dresser and personal assistant.
What I'm required to do, and I'm sure some things will change, but isn't the most wonderful reaction to what we're seeing at the moment is so little actually changes. The continuity in our lives. I mean, seeing the heralds in their tabards the other day, somebody once said it was like a theme park. No, it's not. It's the absolute embodiment of our DNA and the values of the nation. Seeing people celebrating here at the concert and at the pageant, it was us saying, well done for being what we are and what we believe in. Seeing people working so hard in the pandemic to help each other out was an embodiment of that. So, yes, of course, there will be some changes, but I'm very confident the sweep of history will continue.
Yeah. Do you share that confidence?
Absolutely, and that word continuity is so critical in terms of it's seamless from monarch to monarch, even though the world around is changing. Their values and their purpose are critical, and that continues in terms of serving the people.
We must be the envy of the world. Just think what's happened. Head of state has changed, prime minister has changed, not a shot fired, not a window broken, not a riot on the street. We've just moved it through. I mean, how many countries in the world can claim to have managed this kind of transition as well as we have?
It's good to see you both. Thank you both for coming
Thank
in,
you.
Sally and Sir Ken. Thank you very much. Well, over the past 6 days, as we've mentioned, the King has been offering his own tributes, very moving tributes to his late mother, talking of her dedication, her devotion as sovereign, which never wavered, he said, through times of change and progress, through times of joy and celebration, times of sadness and loss. Those were the King's words, and all the tributes we've had, underlying all of them, even the most formal, there you have the sense of a devoted son, in Charles's case, paying tribute to his mother.
I do have very happy memories of childhood. We had such incredibly jolly games. Here, I remember Clarence House. So we used to live here, upstairs, the top of the house in the nursery. And I remember we used to have lots of laughs. I could sometimes make her laugh anyway, which was always very jolly. I shall never forget her. When we were small, having a bath, and she came in practicing wearing the crown before the coronation, with all those sort of marvellous moments. Particularly, I've never forgotten when I went to the part of the coronation. The sheer length of her reign has been a remarkable achievement, I think, in itself, to maintain that degree of involvement and dedication and effort over so many years. I think that the act of being there, of being a continuing reference point of stability and reassurance, is something that I think is of the greatest importance. And that, I think, is what my mama has done, which is truly remarkable. She was always there, and I again talked to her about this, that, or the other. And that's always been something, I think, that's, well, it's been very difficult not to have, if you know what I mean. So all those memories will, I hope, keep me going. Yes, well, I was very lucky to have her as a mother.
Such warmth in the tributes there, genuine warmth, which came across. And of course, we've heard the public tributes to the Queen from the then Prince of Wales. But of course, it's a different matter privately. And what you got there was a sense of the Prince's affection and love for his mother, which was a lovely thing to see. A great sight in Buckingham Palace right now, because we have the grand figure of the drum major saluting and ready for the procession to get underway in a few minutes' time. Three of the military there providing the guard of honour at Buckingham Palace, and the Royal Standard flying, signalling that the King is there, King Charles III, who will be part of this procession. He will be following the procession on foot with other members of the family. And It'll be a solemn moment when they, of course, follow the procession all the way to Westminster Hall. Let's join Fergal Keane again.
Soon now we expect the coffin to emerge from Buckingham Palace. The bearer party has carried the coffin, led by the Sovereign's piper, through the Marble Hall and the Grand Hall. And from there, it will be taken by the Guard of Honour to the gun carriage. Already in the ballroom, the Crown Jeweller has placed the imperial state crown on the coffin, and the royal florist has placed a fresh wreath of flowers. And this wreath of flowers has included a selection of foliage, including pine from the gardens of Balmoral and lavender and rosemary from the gardens at Windsor. And stillness now, before that moment when the crowds will see, for the first time, the coffin leaving Buckingham Palace for the last time. And a time to reflect on what the Queen meant to so many. I'm thinking of the voices outside Windsor Castle last Thursday, just as the flag came to half-mast, and it dawned on people that she had died. One young man, Josh Webb, a neighbour, as he put it, of hers in Windsor, told me she was a guiding light, a lesson in how to behave, how to be. Division with arms reversed in respect for the monarch. Passing under the Great Arch for the last time, Queen Elizabeth II. coffin as it leaves Buckingham Palace, King Charles and senior members of the royal family. The King is wearing the full-day ceremonial uniform with the rank of Field Marshal and carrying the Field Marshal's baton presented to him by the Queen when he became Field Marshal in 2012. commanding officer of the gun carriage is Captain Amy Cooper, 31 years old. She's the only mounted officer today. She's riding the horse Lord Firebrand.